The anatomy threads. So this is probably one of the most disturbing things that ever appeared on 4chan. Every once in a while, a thread would show up on B with no text, no warning, just high-resolution photos of what looked like dissected human bodies. And I'm not talking about movie props or fake gore, and these were clinical, medical-grade images that looked like they came straight from an autopsy room. The photos were so detailed and professional that people immediately started asking questions. Some users claimed they were stolen morgue records, others said the poster took the pictures themselves. Nobody could verify anything, which made it even more unsettling. What made these threads really stand out was how they would just vanish mid-discussion, like someone was monitoring them and hitting a kill switch whenever they got too much attention. Even for 4chan, a site known for pushing boundaries, these threads felt like they crossed a line that shouldn't have been crossed. The scary part wasn't what the photos showed, it was that nobody could tell if they were supposed to exist in the first place. Were they evidence of something illegal, stolen medical files, or just an elaborate hoax? Nobody ever found out, and that's what made them so haunting. Someone's living in my walls. This story from the early 2000s still gives me chills. A user on X posted that they'd been hearing strange sounds in their walls. Footsteps, whispering, and slow breathing when their house should have been completely silent. At first, everyone assumed it was just another creepypasta, but this person kept posting updates with photographic evidence. They showed holes near air vents, scratch marks on baseboards, tools that had been moved around, and food going missing. The community started taking it seriously when they posted a blurry night photo showing a single human eye staring through a vent. That's when the thread exploded. People were telling the poster to call the police while others begged them to keep updating. It became like watching a horror movie play out in real time, with thousands of people refreshing the page to see what would happen next. And then it just ended. No final update, no goodbye, just silence. The poster never came back, never explained what happened. Was it all fiction? A mental breakdown documented online? Or was someone actually documenting a real intruder hiding in their home? Nobody knows for sure, but it felt real enough that people still talk about WallAnon years later. The way it ended so abruptly without any resolution made it stick with people because there was never any closure. The warning posts. Between 2009 and 2012, something really disturbing started happening on 4chan that eventually caught the attention of federal law enforcement. Users began posting short, cryptic messages that seemed to predict real-world tragedies before they happened. These posts were usually just a few words, "Tonight, I'm going to do it," or "Watch the news tomorrow." Most people dismissed them as typical trolling, but then investigators started noticing a pattern. Several mass shootings and bombings were preceded by these exact types of posts, sometimes by just hours. The FBI eventually traced some of these warning posts back to the actual perpetrators. The most famous case was in 2012, when someone posted about making history at a specific location, and less than 24 hours later, a mass shooting occurred at that exact place. What made this even more disturbing is that you couldn't always tell which posts were real threats and which were just people looking for attention. By the time anyone figured it out, it was already too late. These weren't creepypastas or urban legends. They were real missed opportunities to prevent actual tragedies. Law enforcement started monitoring the site more closely, and threads with suspicious content began getting deleted faster. But the warnings never completely stopped. They just became more subtle and harder to detect. The cell phone in the woods. In 2013, someone posted a simple question on B, "Found a phone while hiking. Weird pics inside. Should I post them?" Of course, 4chan said yes, and what followed was one of the most investigated mysteries in the site's history. The photos showed dark images of forest areas, animal carcasses arranged in strange patterns, and what appeared to be a makeshift shelter with chains and restraints inside. But the most disturbing images were surveillance-style photos of people, hikers, campers, families, all taken secretly from a distance. The thread exploded as users began analyzing every detail. They enhanced the images, tried to identify the location based on vegetation and terrain, and even studied shadow patterns to determine when the photos were taken. Some users claimed they recognized the area from their own hiking experiences. The consensus was that these photos belonged to someone who was either planning violence or had already committed it. The hidden shelter with restraints was particularly concerning because it suggested the remote location was being used for harmful purposes. As the investigation intensified, users compiled detailed reports and some even contacted local police with their findings. But then the thread suddenly vanished. Not just deleted, completely erased from the site's archives. The original poster never returned, and all evidence of the investigation disappeared overnight. Some people think law enforcement intervened and ordered the thread's removal. Others believe the poster got scared when they realized how seriously the community was taking it. Either way, nobody ever found out if those photos were evidence of real crimes or just an elaborate hoax designed to frighten people. My sister is a demon. This story from 2014 is probably one of the most psychologically disturbing things ever posted on X. It started with a single sentence: "My sister isn't human anymore." The user went on to describe a gradual change in their younger sister's behavior. She stopped blinking normally, would whisper things she shouldn't know, and would stand motionless in hallways for hours at a time. At first it read like typical creepypasta material, but the updates kept coming with disturbing consistency. The poster began sharing photographic evidence of strange occurrences, scratch marks appearing on their body overnight, locked doors found open in the morning, and family pets disappearing. The story evolved to include video footage and audio recordings of strange sounds, doors slamming by themselves, and whispered voices in unidentifiable languages. The quality was poor, but the content was genuinely unsettling. The community was divided on how to respond. Some urged the poster to seek medical help, suggesting their sister might be suffering from mental illness. Others encouraged them to continue documenting the experience, fascinated by the apparent supernatural elements. The thread reached its climax when the poster described their sister attacking them. Not physically, but with a stare that felt like it reached through them. They said she whispered something in a voice that wasn't her own, but refused to reveal what was said. After that post, the updates stopped. No explanation, no resolution, just silence. The story ended without any closure, leaving thousands of readers wondering what really happened. Was it elaborate fiction, a family dealing with mental illness, or genuine documentation of something supernatural? The ambiguity is what made it so effective. It never tried to convince readers it was real. It just presented the events as facts and let people draw their own conclusions. The Nude Hunter thread. This one's particularly disturbing because it involved real people being stalked. Someone started posting blurry photos of women in public places, on buses, in stores, at parks. The angles were all wrong, like they were taken secretly from bushes or behind objects. The captions were even worse, things like, "Hunting today." At first, most people assumed it was just another creep with a camera, but the photos kept coming. Same locations, same faces, different days. It became clear that this person was actually stalking these women across multiple locations over time. The community's reaction was mixed. Some people called the poster out and warned them that police were watching, but others laughed and made jokes about it. That's the problem with 4chan. You can't control the chaos, and there's always going to be people who encourage the worst behavior. Then, without any warning, the entire thread disappeared. Some said federal agents stepped in, others claimed the moderators scrubbed it. Either way, it was completely gone, and nobody ever figured out if it was just a pervert playing games or someone tracking women for something far more sinister. The fact that real people were being photographed without their knowledge made this different from other 4chan mysteries. These weren't fictional characters or anonymous posters. They were actual women who had no idea they were being watched and documented online. The threads that vanished. Every longtime 4chan user knows this feeling. You're browsing through B, you click on something that looks dark or illegal, and before you can finish reading it, 404, thread not found. Sometimes it's just moderators deleting rule-breaking content, but sometimes it feels like something more. Users have theories about certain threads triggering back-end flags, content so disturbing or dangerous that outside agencies are monitoring and removing it in real time. These are the threads about doxing, confessions to serious crimes, terrorist threats, and child abuse. The stuff that makes even 4chan go silent, because everyone knows it's crossed a line that shouldn't be crossed. There are rumors about servers being seized, posters being traced, and FBI agents watching posts in real time. Nobody can prove it, but nobody doubts it either, because some threads don't just get deleted. They get erased like they never existed at all. These are the ones nobody screenshots, the ones people only talk about in private messages, the ones you never forget because you're not supposed to remember them. They represent the absolute darkest corners of the internet, where anonymity becomes a shield for the worst possible behavior. The suicide thread. This one looked like a typical troll post when it first appeared. A user on B said they were planning to take their own life, but this wasn't the usual desperate cry for attention. The tone was dry and matter-of-fact, like someone calmly narrating the end of their own story. The poster explained their background, mental illness, isolation, failure, but nothing was romanticized or dramatic. They just laid out their plan in real time, step by step, like they were writing a documentary about their own death. The community reacted quickly. Some people begged them to stop, others tried using humor to pull them out of it, and a few attempted to track them down by analyzing details in their posts. But this was 4chan, where chaos rules. Trolls encouraged them to go through with it while others fought to save them. The poster kept updating slowly, getting dressed, writing final notes, picking a location, and then nothing. No final message, no confirmation, no closure. The thread just stopped, and the poster never came back. Nobody knows if they followed through with their plan or not, and that's what haunted people about it. The silence. The ending without any answer. Just the memory of watching someone potentially die while strangers watched and argued about whether it was real. This represents one of the most disturbing aspects of anonymous platforms. The inability to help someone in crisis because you don't know who they are or where they are. It's a reminder that behind every anonymous post is a real person with real problems. The warning signs. These stories all share common elements that make them so memorable and disturbing. They blur the line between reality and fiction in ways that make it impossible to know what's real. They document potential crimes and tragedies in real time, often with no resolution or closure. Most importantly, they show how anonymous platforms can be used for both good and evil. The same anonymity that protects whistleblowers and activists also shields predators and criminals. The same community that can solve mysteries and catch bad guys can also encourage dangerous behavior and ignore cries for help. What makes these stories stick with people years later isn't just their content, it's the questions they leave unanswered. Were they real or fake? Could something have been done to help? How many other similar situations are happening right now that we don't know about? The truth is that we'll probably never know the answers to these questions. The anonymous nature of 4chan means that these mysteries will remain unsolved forever, but maybe that's what makes them so compelling. They exist in that gray area where anything seems possible and nothing can be definitively proven. If you want to discuss these stories or share other 4chan mysteries you've heard about, leave a comment below. But remember, some doors are better left unopened, and some questions are better left unanswered.